Hello and welcome to part 7, I think, of my my presentation of my ontology and my comments on other kinds of ontology slash metaphysics. And this time we are going to look at Peter Sellers and the party. As you see here, there's a nice elephant that I've referred to before, right? And with some fancy colors, right? Back in the psychedelic days. The Danish title is something like "Come wash my elephant," and this has sort of a reference to it needs to get rid of its colors, and there's an elephant sort of psychedelic in these are the old psychedelic days, right? And it's just to start it off with sort of a moral or sort of comfy approach to it, right? And I might, by the way, recommend you go check out this movie if you haven't seen it before. It's hilarious, right? It still holds up. At least the first 2/3 of the movie, right? The part with the elephant and the is sort of a bit over the top in my opinion, right? Okay, what I'm trying to get to is this, and I'll switch to the next side here, page. If you are working from the idea of an inside-outside dichotomy, right? There are some things you need to explain to me. If you are talking about, at least if you're talking about, this is what is going on in an outside realm, right? Now, the first question would be, if you already have access to an elephant outside your mind, why would you need an experience of it inside your mind that may even confuse the outside, right? If you say, yeah, there's an elephant, but I need to have an experience of it in my mind to have access to that elephant. So there are sort of two elephants you're comparing, sort of, right? And you might say, I'm not sure I'm experiencing elephant, so I have to check whether or not I'm experiencing something like that, right? It's the old what's it called? Not conversion theory of truth, but the I forget. But where you have to compare your experience with the real world, so to say, in order to figure out whether it's true or false, right? So it's kind of weird, right? If you already have a certain access or an access about an external world that is given or settled, why would you need also an experience of it inside your mind? That might, if you're not experiencing elephant or you're in doubt about that experience of elephant, that might contradict somehow what you're experiencing outside, which is this given thing. You don't need that inside experience. You only need that external perfect world, right? And if it's not perfect, how can you be sure that there's anything to this external world then, right? If it's not given, if you're not sure that there's an elephant, it doesn't really matter you have an inside experience of elephant if you're not sure there actually is an elephant out there. No matter how convinced you are of the inside elephant, that doesn't validate any uncertainty of an outside world. So either it must be perfect if you have an outside experience, so to say, right? And the second one I write, if you need the experience of the elephant inside first, then how do you get to say anything about elephants outside your mind? Because you only knew of the elephant, and I write knew, right, because this is not epistemology, this is metaphysics, right? Only knew of the elephant when you experienced it inside your mind, right? If you can't get to the elephant before you have an experience of it inside your mind, you never had an external experience, right? You're just confusing your inner experiences as some kind of external world, right? So my point is, when you look at these pictograms here, right? There's this colorful elephant, and the story is something like this. There is an elephant, then there's some electrons, or some photons that hits the elephant. The photons travel to your eye, as a picture here. From the eye, the photons travel into your brain, and your brain creates, you can discuss that in the mind-matter problem, right? Or the mind-brain problem. There's some neurons, and all of a sudden, that elephant appears inside, right? But the point is, how did you get to tell me about what happened before you experienced elephant? If you need that experience that I've highlighted in this, in this rectangle where the elephant furthest to the right in the presentation is, right? That if you need that experience of elephant to have any idea of elephant, how do you get to tell that story of what happens before elephant, right? Well, and if it's not the same elephant your experience that is out there, why? How is it different? So if that's the case, if it's not the same elephant, it's a different elephant, or not two elephants. I don't mean it that, but it's different in composition, so to say. If it's not identical, they're different, right? So if it's different, that thing out there, than your experience, then your experience is contradicting the outside. So which one wins then? The outside or the inside, right? If it's the same, how can it be that? Because you needed the experience of the elephant over there to the right before you knew of the elephant out there, according to this ontology, right? So that it doesn't there's a problem, right? There is a paradox somewhere here. It doesn't work. And you can also say, how does an elephant all of a sudden become photons? And how do this elephantness to these photons travel through your eye, through your brain, become some neurons that then manifests as an elephant? Because photons is not an elephant, are they? Even if they sort of bounced off an elephant, do they sort of grab some elephantness and then travel through your eye, through your brain, and create a neuron that becomes an elephant in your mind? How does that elephant travel all this? It's weird, right? Because the elephant is out there. It's not traveling through your eye, right? If the elephant itself was traveling through your eyes and manifesting in your mind as a one-to-one copy of something outside, how the hell does it do that? It seems weird, right? But then if there's no elephant in the photons, there is no elephant in the eye, or the brain, or the neurons, or in your mind. Right? If the elephant is out there, it can't travel through your eye into your mind. So whatever you experience in your mind then cannot be whatever is out there. Right? What is actually going on here? Well, I would say it's a good idea to make a foundational ontology, as I've done, right? And I created, okay, there are colors. We are starting with the colors, then cognitions, and then abstractions, right? All this is just a story being told, or you're telling yourself potentially, right? That elephant you have placed out there is that map you have extracted from a territory, put outside, and then connected it with various abstractions in order to become that same elephant inside your mind. All of this is going on in your mind. It's basically just a conjured up story you're telling about what is going on. Right? There is no telling about what is going on before you have the colors and and the cognitions of elephant, right? You have some colors and sounds, and then you might cognize elephant. In the case of Peter Sellers here, right? Elephant, the world is flat, by the way, right? Interesting. And you have that. You have the colors, then you have elephant, and then you have some emotions. And then you attach this experience to an imagined abstraction, which is called the story of the inside-outside dichotomy. That is the elephant outside and the photons and the eye and the brain and the neurons and then the elephant, right? This is just a story. All you have is actually just the experience of elephant, right? The rest is a story you're telling, right? What you can do is say, I don't know, I can say about this experience of my elephant, that cognition of elephant is a representation of something outside I don't have access to. That elephant furthest to the left is a question mark, right? And the next bit is also a question mark, and a question mark, and a question mark, and a question mark. And at some point, it becomes my elephant. That's what I have to work with, right? But all this other stuff over here, these are just other kinds of mental representations that I have put together to tell myself a story about that elephant, right? This is an imagined, I don't like the term story, but I hope you understand where I'm going with it, right? It's, these are all question marks before the actual elephant experienced, right? But because I have this idea of the inside-outside, I'm also putting the same elephant out there and then creating a story about how it occurs in my mind, right? And illusionists would say that, yes, you might experience elephant, but the colors are just illusions. I'm not even sure I understand illusionists, right? But they're basically trying to say something like, at least they're approaching it, and that's my understanding, right? That what is actually interesting is all that story before the square or the rectangle where I put the last elephant. That's the actual story of what is going on. The last bit is just some weird noises and colors to make you feel good, right? That is just illusions, right? They're just a funny spectacle, right? Because when you look at this, the hard problem is the front end, the left part of this rectangle where the elephant, the right elephant is, right? That's why I put it in this square, right? Or this rectangle. It's because getting into that elephant from the outside is the hard problem. What is it about these neurons before the elephant that must lead to the color of pink or whatever, right? There's no pinkness about these neurons that are just, ideas on a computer screen. No, it's because all of this in front of the last elephant is all a story that is already in your mind, right? You're just putting that experience of the elephant at the front end of the story also, right? And then this story becomes your understanding of the world. And basically mostly there are 5 pictures of the outside, and then there's only one elephant in the last bit, which that's just boring illusions, right? But all you actually have is the last elephant. The rest is your story, right? When you think of it, have you ever experienced a photon? Have you ever experienced an eye? Right? And you could say that the most abstract idea here is, of course, the photons, right? But you could go and do some anatomy and, look at some eyes and, and brain and so on. But think of it, right? Have you seen a neuron ever, right? Have you experienced a neuron? Have you experienced the brain? Have you experienced an eye? And all these labels put on it to explain what is what and what is this and that is that. But the most important thing is, have you ever experienced a photon? And the really interesting question is, have you ever experienced a photon that has elephantness to it? Now, if you can give me a description of somebody who isn't crazy, but can argue very well for the idea that they can find photons with elephantness to it, I would like to know, right? Otherwise, this might point in the direction that there's some foundational problem in this kind of ontology, right? Metaphysics / ontology. I would propose or suppose, I wouldn't propose, I would suggest that all you actually have access to is that elephant that you're experiencing. That elephant you should wash. Wash that elephant, right? You're experiencing colors and elephant, right? Without the colors, there wouldn't be experienced elephant. You may hear the sound of a trumpet-like thing, and you say that might be an elephant, but you're not really cognizing elephant. You're just reminded of a particular attribute of that thing called elephant that usually sounds like this, but it might be some record player somewhere, right? But if you experience elephant, you are experiencing elephant, right? You don't experience any photons or whatever, all this, right? That's the story you're telling yourself about your actual experience, right? So it's the approach, therefore, to me is that you have to let go of this story before you create your ontology. As I put in the box down here, I put that in the square also, just like the elephant, because the square of the elephant and the square down there is basically similar in a basic kind of sense, right? I'm describing my experience rather than trying to fit my experience into an already conceived story about what is going on. All fucking academics in the world are using that story about the elephant becoming an elephant as the ontology, right? And they go into all sorts of harebrained science about eyes and brains and neurons and photons and quantum and whatever. It doesn't matter. It has no bearing on your cognitions, right? Either you cognize elephant or you don't, right? Either you have that color or you don't. Have a color or you don't, or you have a sound or you don't, right? You're basically not in control of that. So therefore, you have to start with the elephant and what elephant is arrived from. And that's why I'm saying the only sane and healthy approach to ontology is to do this reduction and try to say, what is the starting point of my experience? Well, it is my colors and sounds and smells and touch and taste, right? And then there's this thing about elephants, for instance, or Eiffel Towers, right, or beavers. Why do I cognize? There's something going on where it's almost like my mind, let's say, call it that, or the me, is sort of recognizing a particular pattern and saying to itself, this is elephant, this is elephant, this is elephant, this is Eiffel Tower, this is Eiffel Tower, this is beaver, right? But it's just a collection, basically, of various qualia, like colors and sounds and taste, and maybe also shapes, right? And I have my own, ontology about how shapes arise, right? This is the deepest problem in this is the these aspects you have to get right? You have to get it right, otherwise the rest of your philosophy will suffer from it, right? And I might have pulled it up, but one way to see how wrong this goes, right? If you don't get this right, is to look at something like metaethics. Because metaethics suffer from a lack of good ontology, a lack of good metaphysics, a lack of good epistemology. Because it it compounds as you go along in your philosophy. So when you get to ethics and start to say, okay, what am I actually doing when I'm doing ethics? You have a diagram at the size of the universe, right? At the size of the solar system, with all sorts of, well, it could be this, it could be that, and this part is epistemological, and this is linguistic, and this is metaphysical, and this is, it's all one compounded problem to figure out whether or not you can go and say, and point and say, there is immorality over there, right? Which in itself is a stupid notion, just like David Hume would have told you, right? So if you don't get this right, everything else I would consider it wrong, right? But how would you know if it's right? Because there is no given solution to this. There is no one, you can't go anywhere to a library that says, okay, there is no teacher, there is no professor that can go and say, yes, this is the correct solution. Because they are even more confused than you are, right? They have taken 7 years of university confusion in order to be so confused that they can't get to any solution, possibly, right? They don't dare to do it because they're afraid of the the pantheon of philosophers looking down upon their mere existence, right? You have to get to a solution to this. If you don't know where to start with your philosophy or what to do, start here, right? Start here. Get this going without having any circular reasoning, without have any paradoxes, any dilemmas. And if there is a dilemma, you identify the dilemma and how you approach it and so on, right? There can't be no gray areas. There can't be no holes anywhere, right? I don't like philosophy with holes in it, or contradictions, or fluffy language. No, it has to be fucking kitchen knife sharp. Kitchen knife sharp. Kitchen knife sharp. Otherwise, I don't trust it. Because I can't decipher whether or not you're just bad at philosophy or you're actually trying to trick me, right? So it has to be sharp. It has to be, it doesn't have to depend on me or you or anybody else. It's pure, clean philosophy that we could potentially agree upon, right? That's it. Please share, like, and subscribe. Give me a like and give me a comment. Let me hear what you think. Are you just starting out on philosophy and might be, interested to get a grasp on this, or do you have any? Is there a humongous error somewhere in my thinking here? Or basically, I'm just skeptic, right? Skeptics are those who say, no, you can't do that either, right? Oh, yeah, I don't trust that, right? So I'm the annoying dude in the corner says, fuck you, right? I'm very Humean in my approach, right? That's the only philosopher I would actually say I'm sort of a bit fanboying because of his skepticism, right? But I also do. I mean, I guess I do like Plato's Socrates a bit, right? I like this sort of annoying. The only thing I know is I know nothing, right? There's something interesting about Socrates, but enough of that. This is the foundational core of philosophy, right? There is no just shut up and calculate here, right? There's no just do as you're told. It's all up to you. You have to do the thinking. If you don't do the thinking, someone else will decide for you and then force you to follow their rules, right? Actually, philosophy, in my opinion, should be an appeal to individualism. You are the one thinking your philosophy. Nobody can tell you about, because philosophy is basically, when you hear it, it's a sound, a description, it's a qualia, right? It might poke some cognitions in you and some desires and some feelings and so on, but it starts out as a sound, for instance, as it does here, and maybe you can see my, my face and my presentation, the colors of that. But that's what you're trying to get a grasp on. So you can't let your sounds and colors tell you what you should think, because that's the thinking you're actually doing now in order to figure out how to approach these sounds and these colors. So you have to think for yourself. Forget what I'm doing, right? Just take it as a hint at I might need to do some thinking. Now I'm going to do my own thinking. I'm not going to take anything that Manny Beale says as given, because he's just an experience in my mind, so to say, right? And maybe this is also the biggest problem of communicating philosophy, because you have to do it as I do here. You have to say to people, or potential people out there, I don't know what the hell is out there, right? But I'm working from the axiom that I have to, hey, I'm a philosopher over here, but don't listen to me. That also sounds stupid, right? So at the end of the day, that most people will just, well, I go to work, I get my pay and buy my, whatever, pay my bills. And, it's like, I'm just following whatever I'm supposed to follow, and I don't want to think for myself, right? And I mean, I can see the approach. I mean, I can understand it. I can be empathetic to being blue-pilled or not being red-pilled in this sense. That it feels more safe to just, what's the difference? What do I gain from it, right? You might end up being crazy, like, these philosophers sitting alone in a cottage somewhere in the woods, writing weird books nobody reads. I mean, I can see the point. But it might be something like, some people can't help it, right? And if you're one of these people who can't help it, maybe it's hard to, even if you don't want to philosophize, you can't help philosophizing, because you want to have a structure to your thinking in order to make good decisions, right? That's the best appeal I can do to philosophy, is that at the end of the day, there is always some kind of thinking behind what people with big influence in the world, or other people, other individuals, what they do and how they do it, right? There is some kind of thinking, be it crazy or not, right? But it's based on some kind of thinking. So I think that at the end of the day, you can't argue your way out of the need for thinking. And if you leave thinking or reject thinking, somebody else will think some shit for you and then inflict it on you at some point. It might be to your advantage, but it might not be to your advantage, right? And this sort of utilitarian, trolley problem approach to the world is highly dubious and problematic, as I'm pointing out in my series on the trolley problem, and please go check that out, right? That it ends up being authoritarian, right? And then that's what some people want. They want to be the authority telling what other people should do, and they should pay for their life, right? So looking at the statistics of, for instance, government in the 20th century, it doesn't look good, right? And it was based on people saying, no, I don't want to think for myself. Let, Adolf or Joseph or, Mengele, Pol Pot, let them think for me. Yeah, they're probably very good people who knows what everybody wants and needs and fix all the problems and so on, rather than they're basically just fucking crazy, psychopaths, right? Doesn't sound like a good approach to me, right? It might not hurt you in the moment, but isn't it virtuous to think, well, just because it doesn't hurt me, it might hurt somebody else, that I'm not thinking for myself. So therefore, it might be a virtuous idea to think for yourself, right? Okay. I'll leave it there. As I said, please share, like, and subscribe. Give me a like, give me a comment. Consider a donation. Thank you for those who have donated, and I very much appreciate it. Let me have your donation, if you please, and to encourage me to keep doing this if you think I'm doing a good job. And beyond that, have a nice day. See you in the next one.